Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm your narrator Giles with a J and we're on Season 22, Family Annihilators Part 2. I already did a season of Family Annihilators years ago and you can check the description for a link to a playlist of all of those videos. Otherwise, on with the show. David Brom was born on October 3rd, 1971 in Cascade Township, Minnesota. He was the second oldest of 4 children born to Bernard and Paulette. His older brother Joe, then 19, had moved out of the house and hadn't been on good terms. Joe was a rebellious teen, and after their falling out, his parents vowed that their 3 other children, 16-year-old David, 13-year-old Diane, and 11-year-old Richard, would not end up the same way. They tightened the rules around the house and tried to be involved in the lives of each children. For David, his father Bernard had taken up running with him, and the two were restoring a car together. Friends of the family said it seemed like a loving home, and the other 2 children, Diane and Ricky, seemed happy and active. Others described David as being dependable, having been the babysitter for one neighbor and did outside chores for others without accepting payment. It would later be revealed that David suffered from depression, and those feelings were deepened when 2 good friends moved away around the same time his brother left home. That sense of loss had a profound effect on David, with him having attempted to end his life twice in 1987. As his mood darkened, David began feeling like he was being oppressed by his parents. He began telling friends that he was going to kill his parents and, like many cases before this one, his friends thought he was just displaying teen angst. It wasn't until the morning of February 18th, 1988 that his friends realized just how wrong they were about David. This is Monsters. Before we begin, I just want to make sure you know that my other show, Sinister, is back up and there are 3 episodes a week. They're dark stories from history, and if you like this show, you'll probably like that one. Give it a shot. There are links in the description. Thanks. David was a sophomore at Lord High School, and he arrived at school in the morning where he confided in 2 friends that he had killed his family. David didn't attend any classes as he eventually left the school and was seen driving around town in the family van. He was seen at Kmart, Godfather's Pizza, and it's believed he went back home at one point, but was no longer there by the time authorities arrived. In the afternoon, he was seen withdrawing cash from an ATM. Eventually, his friends reported what they had heard to school counselors, who consequently contacted authorities. It was at 5:23 p.m. Olmsted County deputies Kevin Torgerson and Mike Braley arrived at the Brom residence to perform a welfare check. The deputies entered through an unlocked garage door, noticing fresh snow outside and wet tire tracks indicating recent vehicle movement. Upon entering the home, the deputies discovered a first-floor bathroom covered with hair dye and letters and cards scattered across the floor. As they proceeded upstairs, Torgerson spotted 2 sets of bare feet at the top of the stairs, which belonged to Paulette and Diane. In the master bedroom, deputies found Bernard in what Torgerson described as, quote, a weird position, kind of squatting on his knees next to the bed with his right arm up on the bed. Meanwhile, Ricky was discovered in his bedroom lying in a fetal position, clutching a small blanket with massive head injuries. All 4 victims had sustained numerous gashes to their heads and upper bodies from an axe. Investigators later located the blood-stained murder weapon in the basement on top of a stack of National Geographic magazines. 2 knives were found upstairs but appeared to have been unused. Joe was located at work as a cook at the Henry Wellington restaurant where he was informed of his family's murder. David, however, was nowhere to be found. A manhunt began in search of the teen who was believed to have killed his family. He was spotted by a teacher at the Northgate Shopping Center, and then the van was located at Methodist Hospital a few hours later. It was the following morning that David was finally apprehended at a post office after being reported by a citizen who had spotted him using a payphone outside. David was arrested without any resistance. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Investigators examining the case after the arrest uncovered disturbing evidence suggesting the killings were not a spontaneous act of rage. Instead, a methodical plan had been developing in the teenager's mind for weeks prior to that deadly night. During a thorough search of David's belongings, detectives discovered a notebook containing detailed writings about his desire to kill his family. The entries dated back several weeks, growing increasingly specific about methods and timing. One particularly chilling entry outlined how he would wait until everyone was asleep before carrying out his plan. The notebook also contains sketches of the family home with marked pathways between bedrooms, suggesting extensive premeditation. Former classmates provided investigators with crucial information that further illuminated David's mindset. Beyond the initial confession on the day of the murders, several peers recalled numerous instances where David had openly discussed killing his parents. One friend remembered David mentioning how easy it would be to kill someone with an axe during a casual conversation weeks before the murders. Yet another recalled David asking detailed questions about inheritance laws and whether minors could access family funds after parents' deaths. Those conversations, once dismissed as dark teenage humor, now appeared as warning signs overlooked by those around him. The investigation revealed an increasingly troubled relationship between David and his father. Family acquaintances described Bernard as strict but fair, while David perceived his father's disciplinary style as overly controlling. School records indicated David had visited the counselor's office 3 times in the month before the murders, complaining about family pressure. Neighbors reported overhearing heated arguments between father and son about music choices, curfew violations, and declining grades. Several friends noted David had begun experimenting with darker aspects of music and fashion, changes his conservative Catholic parents struggled to accept. Those mounting tensions, combined with possible undiagnosed mental health issues, created a volatile situation that ultimately erupted in violence. Investigators believed that David had gotten into an argument with his father on the evening of February 17th. David stayed up that night and retrieved an axe from the property before sneaking into each bedroom and murdering his parents and siblings. The first thing that needed to happen in court was to determine if David would be tried as a juvenile or an adult. He had brutally murdered his 4 family members with an axe, but if he was tried as a juvenile, he would be free in less than 3 years. The judge ruled that David would be tried in juvenile court, which created public outrage. He claimed that he was only basing his decision on the state law at the time, but the state court of appeals overturned the decision, and David was ordered to be tried as an adult. It's likely that the evidence of premeditation helped make that decision. Prosecutors presented compelling evidence, including the notebook found in David's bedroom. Investigators discovered the murder weapon with his fingerprints on the handle. Witnesses testified that on February 18th, David withdrew $250 from a credit union, purchased makeup and hair dye, and dramatically altered his appearance. Since David pleaded both not guilty and not guilty by reason of insanity, his trial proceeded in 2 phases. The court applied the McNaughton rule, requiring proof that he didn't understand his actions were wrong. Unsurprisingly, 7 of 8 mental health professionals who evaluated David found him mentally competent. You don't spend weeks writing in your journal about killing your family with specific details about how to do it and how to get away with it and not understand it's wrong. Similarly, you don't tell your friends all about how you're going to murder your family and how you will get away with it and not understand that it's wrong. The other psychologist claimed that David had suffered from visual hallucinations for years and that he had 3 distinct personalities. Both the prosecutor and the judge were skeptical about those claims. It seems the jury was as well because, on October 16, 1989, David Brom was found guilty of all 4 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 3 consecutive and 1 concurrent life sentence, with him becoming eligible for parole after 52 years. In May of 2023, Minnesota became the 28th state to ban juvenile life without parole sentences. The landmark legislation made individuals who committed crimes as juveniles eligible for supervised release after serving 15 years. That retroactive change immediately affected David's case, as his 3 consecutive life sentences were suddenly eligible for review. I want to make it clear that this law still applies to people who are tried in adult court. There are some laws that mean it is unconstitutional to sentence a juvenile a certain way, no matter what court they're tried in. One is the death penalty. No minor can be sentenced to death even if they're tried in adult court. Now, in most states, and likely soon in all states, no minor can be sentenced to life in prison. Adult court still means they can get a harsher sentence, though. Juvenile courts can usually only sentence someone to serve until a certain age, usually 18, 19, or 21. In adult court, they can be sentenced to more time and their records don't have to be sealed. Under the previous law, David would have remained in prison until at least 2041. Upon review, the parole board voted 6-1 to deny David full parole, yet granted him step-down status with work release privileges beginning July 29, 2025. David, now 54, transitioned to a Twin Cities halfway house where he receives constant supervision. His movement remains restricted through GPS monitoring, with permission only for seeking employment and limited community involvement. As part of that custody agreement, David must comply with strict parameters or risk losing those privileges. His next parole hearing is scheduled for January of 2026. Whether he can reintegrate into society after spending most of his life incarcerated remains unknown. Only time will tell if David Brom proves that he has been rehabilitated or if he continues to be a monster. Thanks so much for letting me tell you this story. If you're a fan of true crime, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. You can also hit like or leave a comment. If you'd like to support the show, check out our merchandise at thisismonsters.com. The link is in the description. Thanks again, and be safe.